The fallout continues after yesterday's not guilty verdict at the trial of Umar Zameer. We're going to tell you what the mayor is saying. And the Leafs will try to bounce back against the Bruins in Game 2 tonight. Here at home, Maple Leaf Square will play host to fans cheering the team on in front of the big screen. And it's the first day of the peak bloom for the High Park cherry blossoms, and onlookers, they haven't wasted any time getting out to enjoy the display. Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at Noon. I'm Bakari Savage. Well, a jury found Umar Zameer not guilty of first-degree murder. And now there are questions surrounding what several officers testified to on the stand. And CP24's Beatrice Vaisman has more on that story. Beatrice.
Bakari, that's a big follow-up story today. Whether the Toronto Police Service, the Internal Professional Standards Unit, will be looking into these allegations of collusion amongst several officers who took the stand during trial. And as Nader Hassan, the lawyer for Umar Zameer, alleges, perjury, which is lying under oath on the stand. That's what he says several officers did yesterday as Police Chief Myron Demkew was leaving 361 University, getting back into his vehicle after talking to us with his reaction to the acquittal of Umar Zameer. He was asked by our colleague from CTV News, John Woodward, for his response to the allegations of perjury and collusion amongst several of his officers. The chief simply saying today, meaning yesterday, is not the day to talk about that those conversations will happen later. We have not heard a response today from the Toronto Police Service, nor from the Toronto Police Association, the union representing these officers, whether there's going to be any next steps taken to examine if perjury and collusion actually did happen. Her Honor was quite clear, not only with her instructions to the jury, she asked them to take into consideration the possibility that collusion happened because several officers who took the stand shared what she called the same mistaken memory. That mistaken memory was Constable Northrup standing with his arms out in front of him saying, "Police, stop," as Umar Zameer drove at him head on. The collision reconstructionist brought forward by the Crown disproved that theory, suggesting it actually never happened. And so the Crown asked, it's okay, or it's probable that one officer would have a mistaken memory. Is it still probable for three officers to share in that same mistaken memory? So a lot of questions about what happens next. Those questions were asked of Mayor Chow today as well.
In terms of policing or the operations of police and human resources matters, it's really up to the chief, and he has process in place for him to deal with it. As to precise policy, does it needs to be fine-tuned? That's the Police Service Board. We all have a responsibility to work together and trust each other and to maintain that trust.
And so when Mayor Chow was asked whether the City of Toronto, the people of this city, should continue to have confidence in Chief Demkew in the Toronto Police Service after these allegations are made, the mayor says she does have confidence in them, but again, deferred to the Toronto Police Services Board and to the Toronto Police Chief as to what will or what could happen next, Bakari. So still a lot of questions remain in this story, and we'll continue putting it to the chief and to the Police Association as well.
Okay, CP24's Beatrice Vaisman. Thank you. And two people have been injured in an overnight high-rise fire in downtown. It was around 4:30 this morning that crews were called to 140 the Esplanade for reports of a fire in a second-floor unit. Toronto Fire says that the fire was contained to just one unit, and it was quickly put out by firefighters. Officials say that two people did require treatment by paramedics. Toronto EMS says one of them was suffering from smoke inhalation, but there's no word yet on a cause. And police are investigating a smash-and-grab robbery that happened at a store near Danforth and Jones Avenue around 10:30 this morning. Police say 4 or 5 male suspects used a hammer to smash displays, and they then got away in a vehicle. An investigation continues after a 15-year-old boy was critically injured after falling off the roof of a moving GO train over the weekend. And police say that 4 teenagers between the ages of 14 and 16, they boarded the eastbound GO train from Union Station just after midnight yesterday. 3 of them then climbed onto the roof of the train while it was in motion, and that's when the 15-year-old boy was hit by a metal object and fell.
Probably curiosity and seeing other people do it on social media, but we would caution everyone to stay in the coach area. Being on top of a train is definitely not safe, and it goes without saying. It can cause life-altering injuries as well as life-threatening injuries. So this is definitely not something we would recommend. Investigation is ongoing. We are asking local residents, businesses, any drivers with dash cam or surveillance video to, if they do have any of the incident or they were in the area, to please call police.
Metrolinx has issued a statement which reads, quote, "Our thoughts go out to the loved ones of the individual and all those impacted, including our team members and first responders. Metrolinx is working with local law enforcement to investigate this incredibly dangerous incident. Incidents like this are too often tragic and life-altering, and we urge everyone not to take this dangerous action." Well, firefighters in London, Ontario responded to a train on fire after it was spotted by drivers rolling along the tracks. So fire crews were called to the area of Richmond Street and Mall Paul just before 11 o'clock last night. 5 rail cars carrying old wooden railway ties, they were on fire. Firefighters got the fire under control. The train was moved to a nearby rail yard where more water was sprayed. Damage is estimated at over $35,000. And the Leafs are going to be looking to even up their first-round playoff series with the Bruins tonight. So let's check in with CP24's Kayla Williams, who's outside Scotiabank Arena. This is where Leafs fans can cheer on their team tonight during the tailgate party. Kayla.
Hey there, Bakari. Yeah, it is a bit quiet right now where we're standing here inside Maple Leaf Square. But of course, we know that in the next several hours, all of this space here is going to be filled, jam-packed with blue and white as Leafs fans will make their way on to cheer their team down in Boston. So let's recap shortly what went down. It wasn't the greatest of game ones as the team lost final score of 5-1 in this first game of this 7-game series between the Leafs and Boston. It wasn't their greatest of showings as far as the Leafs go. They gave up 2 goals on 5 Boston power plays and getting nothing from their 3-man advantage chances. But as far as this morning goes, as the team is rebounding and focusing ahead to game 2, they did take to the ice for a short practice, and there was a bit of good news in the sense that William Nylander, who was not present for game 1, he did take to the ice during today's practice. However, he did not participate in the lineups. So whether or not we will see him on the ice tonight in this very pivotal and very important game 2 for the Leafs is still yet to be known. But we did hear from Captain John Tavares after practice this morning, and he said that really at this point they need to focus on game 2 and what's ahead versus what's behind them.
Well, we just got to stay with our game. A lot of elements that we like, and we know we got to continue to amplify as well. But correct some things, and continue to be really disciplined, and offensively not to force the issue, but continuing to stay with it, understand where we're going to have success, and get our opportunities, and obviously make good on them.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that the Leafs will also be looking to get more on the offensive side of things going, as there was just 1 goal scored by David Kampf in game 1, Bakari. So again, very quiet right here. It's almost the calm before the storm. Of course, Maple Leaf Square will open its doors to those who have already pre-ordered their tickets on the Maple Leafs app 2 hours before puck drop. So that means 5 p.m. And as for tonight, the puck drop is set at 7 o'clock. But there's no doubt that this experience here, though, during playoffs time, Maple Leaf Square, it's a vibe. It is an experience, one that you have to take in for yourself. So fans are going to be excited, no doubt about it. But it always makes the experience that much better when A, the game is close, and B, the Leafs win. We'll send it back inside to you.
All right, with the preview of game 2, CP24's Kayla Williams. Thank you. And Hyde Park is seeing a steady stream of visitors as cherry blossoms reach peak bloom in the city. And for more, let's go live to CP24's Courtney Hills. Courtney, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Bakari. I have to say it is just gorgeous in Hyde Park at this hour, too. I want to give you a live look at how busy it's getting. We have been here all morning, now into the afternoon. It was pretty quiet first thing. A lot of people coming out, and they told me they were enjoying the peace and quiet. That's because they knew the crowds were coming, and you see here they are. The city says they're expecting tens of thousands of people over the course of the week as part of peak bloom. What this means, 70% of the flowers, of the blossoms, have opened, and you really see that when you look at the branches. So many people in the park are here with their phones. They're capturing photographs. They're taking videos. I'll let you hear from some people who I just talked to earlier and why they made it a priority to be here first thing.
The best way you can help protect nature, especially during cherry blossom season, is avoid touching the blooms, plucking on the flowers, tugging on the branches. They're really sensitive trees, and think of the number of people coming to High Park, and if repeatedly people are doing the same thing again and again, it can really damage the trees. It can kind of bruise them. It's like pinching somebody 100 times. They're going to hurt.
It's so beautiful, and it's also so sunny. There's no clouds in the sky. It's very nice to be out, for sure. I think I love it. It's so cool that everybody comes together. They bring their family, they bring their little dogs, and we just sit together and watch the beautiful cherry blossoms. I love it.
I'm a tourist here, and I really love this part of Canada to see the cherry blossoms. It's a really nice day.
I think it had blossomed much more than last year, it seems. It's very pleasant, very nice, and very good to see such a good atmosphere, which is such a nice climate, of course.
We've talked to quite a few people who are visiting our city who say they heard about the cherry blossoms and they had to come out and see it for themselves. And I think the trip is worth it, Bakari, when you see just how beautiful it is. And I mean, the weather is just perfect too. It's not too warm. It's not too cold. We've got this bright, beautiful sunshine on a Monday afternoon. So a lot of people taking advantage of the conditions. As for peak bloom, it's expected to last between 4 to 10 days. So if today doesn't work, you have a couple of days ahead of you. A good idea to consider two things. One, come early because it gets here really busy. Two, consider transit because vehicles are not allowed inside the park during this busy time. Over to you, Bakari.
Yeah, that vehicle restriction, that is a major reminder. CP24's Courtney Hills. Thank you. Well, Mary J. Blige, Cher, Ozzy Osbourne, they are among this year's inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Let's get it from the in this dancery.
The induction class also includes Foreigner, Tribe Called Quest, Kool and the Gang, Dave Matthews Band, and Peter Frampton. A statement from the chairman of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Foundation says the diverse group of inductees broke musical barriers and influenced artists that followed in their footsteps. The induction ceremony is going to be held October 19th at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland. Right now, it is 12:12, 8 degrees. Let's get a check on traffic with Adjoa NCIA. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bakari. We are dealing with a couple of problems as you make your way out this hour. Actually, a lot of problems on this sunny Monday. We have issues on the eastbound 401. This is right through the 407. Crews on scene of a collision. They were saying that it was the two right lanes that were occupied. It looks like it is just the right lane and shoulder that is out as you make your way through the area. Then on the eastbound 401, problems have cleared. We had a stall in the express through Yonge Street. That situation is all out of the way. And then onto the southbound lanes of the 427 right through Bloor. We are dealing with a collision in the express. It's the right lane and shoulder that is off limits. And if you're traveling on the QEW, making your way Niagara bound through Dorval, brand new collision. This one blocking the two right lanes, cars weaving around on the shoulder just to see themselves through. I'll send it back to you, Bakari. Definitely a busy afternoon.
All right. Thanks, Adjoa.
Welcome.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, an 11th hour deal at the bargaining table kept the TTC on track this morning. After the break, we're going to speak to the president of QP Local 2. And if you took the TTC to work today, you probably noticed that it was service as usual. That's thanks to an 11th hour tentative deal that was reached between the transit agency and electrical and trades workers. Sumit Galaria, president of QP Local 2, now joins us live. Okay, Sumit, thank you very much for taking time to speak with us. I know you cannot get into specifics, but are you pleased? Did you get what you wanted with this deal?
Yes, I think both parties are satisfied with what we achieved last night.
Okay, so along those lines, there was a court decision last year regarding that reinstated your ability to strike. So how pivotal was that leverage in these negotiations?
Incredible. I think the ultimate leverage for a bargaining unit is removal of labor, and to have that right, Bakari, after 13 years, incredibly important.
Okay, so along those lines, when it comes to TTC service being disrupted by striking, that could have an impact on the public support for unionized workers. Did that weigh on you and the members as you were getting ready to hit the picket lines?
I think what we set out to do, Bakari, is simply to achieve something very reasonable. Our members' ask for us was their wages had fallen behind, as I said in my previous press conferences. They were making 15% less than they did in 2010. And those were our goals, and I think we found in that reasonable endeavor we would have the public support, and I think we remain focused on that.
Okay, along those lines, you did talk about, achieving certain things. Were there things that you had to make concessions on in order to avert this?
I, unfortunately, Bakari, hopefully you can understand, I can't, until we present the deal to our members, I can't get into those specifics, but the details would eventually be out.
Okay, so how is the TTC as a bargaining partner when it comes to getting things done?
I would say both parties remained incredibly professional. I think we really understood the importance of trying to find a common ground, reaching a deal that works to have investment be made in public transportation system. It is incredibly important to have skilled workers working at the commission because we're the ones, our members are keeping TTC safe. Our electricians, our radio technicians, our overhead lines person do incredibly important work. And I think they were appreciative of that goal, and I think we absolutely were professional. So, yeah, absolutely. I think we were focused on trying to avoid a strike and reaching a deal.
And speaking of that investment, what does this mean for the future of operations?
In terms of sort of at the TTC?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm not part of the leadership team at the TTC, but I think it means, Bakari, that our members could have earnings that takes care of their inflation concern. We could recruit and retain our members. We had concerns about our members leaving, and I think it just makes the commission a great place to work, and they can now obviously focus on what we do day in and day out, which is keeping our customers and citizens of this city moving safely.
And along those lines, what do you want the public to know? What is your message to the public after all of this?
I think our message to the public is we thank you for your understanding. I think through this process, they've gotten to know more about who we are, and I think that's all I would say.
Okay, Sumit Galaria, president of QP Local 2, thank you very much for taking time to come and speak with us after that 11th hour deal. And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, a new liaison poll is painting a picture of Mayor Olivia Chow's current popularity. We're going to speak with David Valentin about that after the break. And 10 months into her tenure, a new liaison poll suggests that Mayor Olivia Chow and Torontonians, they're getting used to each other. David Valentin, principal at Liaison, joins us now to look more into this, just a little bit more. So, okay, David, Mayor Chow's approval, the rating, it has slipped in the last few months, but we've also kind of started to see her hit her stride. Put this all together for us.
So we have to remember, new mayor, and we had a honeymoon at the very beginning, and then we saw the budget, and her numbers slipped quite a bit. But this month, her numbers are more or less stable. It's a net 13 positive approval, which is the same that she had last month. Her approval rating's down 1 point. Her disapproval rating is also down 1 point. So 13 point net approval last month plus 13. That's the same number this month. So it looks like she's about to hit stability. It's the end of her dive, if you will. And so we're seeing some stable numbers, and maybe even there'll be some ticks in the next few months to come. We're almost getting to that 1 year mark.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, we were just chatting about that, hitting that 1 year mark. How does this all look to you, approaching that? Because we're at 10 months right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many challenges, and I think even more challenges still to come. But some positive news today for the mayor, no service disruptions for the TTC with this deal that's been reached with the union. And of course, there's another union that's going to be negotiating with the city soon that could also lead to TTC impacts. So we'll be seeing how that affects her ratings moving forward. But some of the problems that she's facing right now, she's inherited. We look at the vacancy tax rollout the city had, and these long lines of people who filled out the paperwork and were being taxed anyway. Councillors asking for it to be suspended or scrapped even. So this is not something that she came up with, of course. It's new. It's something that she has to actually implement. And there's going to be other things that I think are left from the past administration that she's going to have to confront.
But speaking of the vacant home tax, what about the effects of that on this poll and her numbers?
I think, to a certain extent, some people are going to judge her harshly because she's the mayor right now. And on the other hand, some people are going to cut her a little bit of slack. And right now, the numbers are positive. More Torontonians approve of her than disapprove. So she's in a good position for the moment. And
speaking of approval versus disapproval, some areas where she didn't come out so high, Etobicoke, North York, going back to Etobicoke, does the fact that is, 4-family stronghold, does that weigh in on this?
I think it does. But also, when we look at the long-term trends for the mayor, she hasn't been doing well in Etobicoke for a while now. And they've been pretty consistent in that neck of the woods that they do not approve the mayor. This approval number has always been higher than the approval for the last few months. Scarborough, we've seen go back and forth. North York, we've seen her be a little higher and then a little lower. But primarily, good numbers in downtown Toronto, good numbers in North York. And those are the two big population centers in the city. So that's not a bad place to be.
What about the Eglinton Crosstown?
So we asked about Metrolinx this month and about the Crosstown. And of course, some people will know we don't have an opening date for the Eglinton Crosstown yet. So we said maybe we'll ask Torontonians and see what they have to say. Only 7% telling us they expect it to open this year. Another 18% say next year. But most, 31%, are telling us 2026. So that would still be some time away from now.
And, when it also comes to feedback that you get, you were saying that people actually take time to reach out to you after these polls are done.
That's right. So we got people who actually do the surveys, and that's all well and good, and we're very appreciative for them. But it's always interesting to see the feedback once we publish the results, either from people who participated or who were just watching it on their TV screen, who have sometimes very strong opinions. Either they really agree with the survey results or they really disagree. And hey, that's democracy. That's how this works.
Okay, David Valentin, principal at Liaison. I'm pretty sure we're going to be speaking with you again very, very soon. We really appreciate your time and insight.
Thank you for having me.
And you are watching CP24 Live at noon. Coming up after the break, city-run long-term care homes are getting free dental care. We're going to tell you more about that program when Live at Noon continues. Toronto is bringing free dental care directly to seniors at city-operated long-term care homes. We're going to tell you more about that program coming up. And a historic trial is underway in New York in the so-called hush money case against former President Donald Trump. Today is Earth Day. Coming up, we're going to hear from one expert on the impact that climate change is having on modern sports. Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at Noon. I'm Bakari Savage. Well, Hyde Park is seeing a steady stream of visitors as cherry blossoms reach peak bloom in the city. And for more, let's go live to CP24's Courtney Hills. Courtney, good afternoon.
Hey, Bakari, and the city expecting thousands of people to arrive here at Hyde Park over the course of the week because many want to take in peak bloom. I mean, look at it. It's just gorgeous here. The weather is perfect. We've got the sun shining. Lots of people here already. Peak bloom is when 70% of the blossoms are open. You can really see that now, too. I mean, we were here first thing this morning. Many of the people we were talking to actually come through the park almost every day. They live nearby. They say they've obviously noticed just how much the flowers are starting to open at this time. I'll let you hear from some of the people who I talked to who were here first thing.
In short, very busy. I usually try to avoid it when it gets really, really crowded. I think over the past year, because they changed the path for the cars, it's definitely increased the people flow, and you see a little bit less cars, but definitely a lot more people coming in.
I thought they were really pretty. I thought, I've never seen pink flowers like this before or on trees, so I thought it was quite nice.
It's unfortunate that some of them aren't doing as well as they have in the past, but it looks like they're taking care of it. They've got some blocked off, and I don't know what they're doing. I haven't investigated that, but yeah, they're beautiful, especially in the morning where there's lots of people not here.
So it was quiet earlier. Now you can really see it's picking up. And again, Bakari, the city says they are expecting to see thousands, if not tens of thousands of people over the course of the week, especially during this peak bloom. So for anybody watching right now, if you want to take this in, it's just gorgeous, but plan ahead for it. And I say that because vehicles do not have access to the park at this time. They shut things down at the entrances because it is this busy. So you'll have to park quite a ways away and you'll have to walk, or transit's always a good idea. Just keep in mind, though, there is a little bit of a walk to get to where we are in the area where you really see a lot of the trees. So comfortable footwear, always key. Over to you.
All right, CP24's Courtney Hills live at Hyde Park. Thanks, Courtney. And Toronto's bringing free dental care directly to seniors at city-operated long-term care homes. The program is going to provide a range of dental services, including preventative care, restorative dentistry, oral surgery, and dentures. The mobile vans staffed with Toronto Public Health dental and oral staff will provide care to potentially 2,600 seniors.
We need to break down the barriers. We need to work hard so that it's not just the seniors in these nursing homes, that we need seniors that can, whether they're in a retirement home or aging in place, it would be ideal if this kind of service is available for everyone. Together, we need the oral health care professionals to take good care of seniors so they can eat well, smile well, and age well.
We know that our dental and oral health impact and contribute to overall health and well-being. And sometimes, while it is taken for granted, we know that oral health affects physical health, it affects mental health, and it affects social well-being. We've heard some stories about that already this morning. We know that good oral health is a vital building block of a strong healthcare system and public health response.
And the hope is that bringing dental care directly to seniors will prevent future hospital visits. Well, a jury found Umar Zameer not guilty of first-degree murder, and now there are questions surrounding what several officers testified to on the stand. And CP24's Beatrice Vaisman has more on that story. Beatrice.
Bakari, in the aftermath of the acquittal of Umar Zameer, we heard not only from Mr. Zameer, from his lawyer, who made some accusations against the Toronto police officers who took the stand and testified during this trial. 3 particular police officers who spoke about their memories and the moments after Detective Constable Jeffrey Northrup was run over on the night of July 2nd, 2021. Lawyer Nader Hassan throughout the trial, actually, and Her Honor Justice Anne Molloy did as well, reminded the jury to be conscious of the fact of possible collusion when it comes to these officers and the testimony that they provided. Her Honor specifically to the jury, asking them to be conscious of collusion because it's one thing for one officer, she said, to have a mistaken memory. It is different when 3 officers share that mistaken memory. The mistaken memory being, as Sergeant Lisa Forbes testified, her vivid memory of Detective Constable Jeffrey Northrup standing with his arms up in the laneway saying, "Police, stop," as he was struck head on by Zameer's vehicle. None of the physical evidence in the trial showed that that actually happened. It was actually contradicted by a collision reconstructionist brought forward by the Crown, who said that Northrup was actually sideswiped by the front bumper of Zameer's vehicle as he reversed. So Lisa Forbes testifying first, and then 2 officers, Constable Antonio Correa and Constable Charnel Pace, ultimately repeating that same memory, which again now we know is simply not the truth. There was no physical evidence of it. So in addition to collusion, yesterday lawyer Nader Hassan said that these officers perjured themselves. They lied under oath. And so now a lot of questions surrounding whether the police chief will be ordering any kind of review under Toronto Police Professional Standards into allegations of perjury and collusion and what the next steps are. We asked Mayor Olivia Chow to comment on these allegations and what she hopes to see going forward.
The chief and the police service has very set policy in place dealing with officers, dealing with people that may or may not have violated any number of policies. I trust that process. It's really, at the end of the day, up to the chief to manage the police services, and it's not my place to comment on it. But if it is policy matter that needs to be changed, the Police Service Board, I am sure, will cease on that matter.
In addition to the verbal testimony given by officers, we now know that at least 2 of the officers were in the same room as they were writing down their notes a month after Detective Constable Jeffrey Northrup's tragic death. That's a no-no in policing, and came out on the stand when another officer, a defense witness, testified. The police chief was asked about these allegations as he was leaving court yesterday, and he simply said yesterday was not the day to have that conversation. We would talk about it later. So here we are now talking about it later and trying to find out if there will be any investigation into the statements and the possible collusion and perjury that these officers are accused of undertaking. Bakari.
Okay, CP24's Beatrice Vason, thank you. And a Quebec family whose husband and father recently died on vacation has been left in shock after a random person's body ended up being sent back to Canada. Faraj Shajour died last month while on vacation in Cuba. The family paid $10,000 for his body to be sent back to Canada. But when they opened the casket, they discovered that the body was not their father. The Shajour family says that the Canadian government has been little help putting the onus on a Cuban medical insurance company that delivered the body. Global Affairs Canada told CTV News via email that it is looking into the file and that the funeral home also says it's looking for the proper body. And Ford is recalling over 55,000 vehicles due to a potential battery issue, which could increase the risk of a crash. The vehicles impacted include the 2021 to 2024 Bronco Sport SUVs and 2022 Maverick trucks. The recall comes as a result of an issue which prevents certain parts of the vehicle from detecting a change in the battery charge, which can cause the engine to stall or fail to restart once the driver does a start-stop. The issue may also impact hazard lights. Well, the Leafs are going to be looking to even up their first-round playoff series with the Bruins tonight. So let's bring in CP24's Kayla Williams, who's outside Scotiabank Arena. This is where the Leafs fans can cheer on their team tonight during the tailgate party. Kayla.
Yeah, Bakari, and the team is definitely going to need all of the cheering from Leafs fans here in Toronto. Hopefully they'll feel it down in Boston, because the reality of it is that they certainly do not want to see a repeat of Game 1 falling 5-1 to the Bruins over the weekend and then falling down 2 in this series as they return to Toronto. So they don't want to see that. But as for today, it is a clean slate. They have a chance to already, of course, review what didn't go so great for the team, how they can improve, and then ultimately even out this series at 1 game apiece. Now, the team just wrapped up their practice for today. A lot of the usual suspects were on the ice, including William Nylander himself as well. Now, of course, Nylander did not play in Game 1, but the team still remains very tight-lipped as far as if we will see him play tonight. He was not in line rushes during practice, although he was on the ice. So again, that will certainly be a game time decision from head coach Sheldon Keefe. But we heard from Keefe after practice today, who really broke down Game 1, saying that he didn't feel that they played too poorly and that they know what they need to do in order to do well tonight. And we also heard from team captain John Tavares. Take a listen.
I expect our team to come out and play hard, play well. Play in lots of ways like we did the other night. Just make a few less mistakes and finish a few of our chances. That's we don't have to change much more than that. Quite honestly, I mean, we liked a lot of things about our game, so we're just gonna get back to it.
We know the margins are thin, and we got to do a good job of staying out of the box. But I like. The intensity we played with. I think the determination and the competitiveness was good. Like I said, that's an important area of the game, especially this time of year, and only continue to amplify that.
More than likely, we will see the usual suspects, those who played in Game 1, back on the ice tonight, including Ilya Samsonov, on the net for the Leafs. Now, as far as Scotiabank Arena and Maple Leaf Square here, of course, Bakari, very quiet right now. Workers just getting everything together, but we know that this is going to be a sea of blue and white, and there's no doubt that fans are definitely rooting for this team, but because, of course, they want to see this series tied up at 1 game apiece. The puck drop is set for tonight down in Boston at 7 p.m., which means the doors open here for Maple Leaf Square at 5 p.m. We'll send it back inside to you for now.
All right, live from Maple Leaf Square, CP24's Kayla Williams. Thanks, Kayla. And a recent survey suggests that support for women's sports is on the rise. The poll shows that 2 in 3 Canadians consider themselves to be fans of women's sports, with 40% noting that they were avid fans who regularly watch the Olympics and FIFA Women's World Cup. The report found that more than half of those who said that they were fans of women's sports were men. Those who answered the poll voiced their optimism for more women's sports on television, as well as brands doing more to support women's sports. And Jana Hefford, Senior VP of Hockey Operations for the PWHL, joined CP24 Breakfast with more on how the PWHL has exploded in popularity in their first year.
The demand has been real, and we've said for years that it was possible, and we believed when we supported the players in a way that they could train and perform every day and have the needs of the athlete taken care of, that our game was only going to grow. And the investment that's put into this league from our ownership group has really allowed the game to be visible and accessible to so many people, and people are just loving it. And so we've got a lot of work to do still, but the launch has certainly been incredibly successful, and we're excited, especially highlighting the research coming out today that people are loving women's sports and they're ready to consume and to be a bigger part of it.
All right, it's 12:43, 10 degrees. Let's get a check on the roads over the lunch hour with Adjoa and Sia Bra. Adj.
Yeah, Bakari, continues to be quite the busy afternoon, and we are still dealing with problems if you're headed through Oakville. This is on the QEW Niagara bound, and actually they blocked a couple more lanes. It looks like now it's the 3 right lanes that are blocked following this multi-vehicle collision. More emergency crews have arrived on scene, so they blocked more additional lanes. That backlog now extends right on off the 403 over towards the situation. Good news, though, if you're a driver coming out of Milton and heading into Mississauga, we were dealing with a collision just east of the 407, had the 2 right lanes blocked. The problems there did all clear. We have some problems now. This is on the eastbound 401 ramp that takes you to the northbound 404. Just a heads up, it looks like we are dealing with a stalled vehicle. It does have the left lane of that ramp blocked. And if your travels take you towards the Don Valley Parkway, just getting busier both north and southbound between Lawrence and the 401, but checking in problem free. Outside of camera view, crews on scene of a collision blocking lanes on Steeles right at Don Mills. I'll send it back to you, Bakari.
The CP24 traffic report is brought to you by CapitalDirect.ca.
Opening statements are being made at Donald Trump's hush money trial in New York. Right now, let's bring in CTV News political expert and analyst Eric Ham. Okay, Eric, good afternoon. The prosecution and defense, they both had a chance to speak this morning. Let's start with the prosecution. What was their argument to the jury?
Yeah, they spoke for their opening statement was about 46 minutes. And what they did was they laid out their case in very detail about the payment itself. They spoke about how it was illegal. They also offered to the jury how they're going to walk them through this case and explain the process, and also the people that they're going to be bringing and putting forward to actually show how this is a crime, and more specifically, how Donald Trump actually sought to use this as an effort to actually win the White House.
Okay, what about the defense? How are they trying to explain this situation? And also, it's being said that Trump's attorney said that the Manhattan DA never should have brought this case.
Yeah, their opening statement was far more explosive. Typically you don't see objections with opening statements, because your opening statements is basically your opportunity to lay out what your argument is going to be, how you're going to present your case. And we saw 3 objections from the prosecution of the defense opening statement. Now, what's also interesting is the judge actually sustained all 3 objections. And what we are now seeing, at least from the opening statement that was given by the defense, is that they're going to make Michael Cohen clearly the backbone of their case, particularly in how they are going to attempt to try to discredit him and making their argument. And also, I'll just add very quickly, it was very interesting because what we heard from the defense is they tried to paint Donald Trump as a family man who we know is actually the backbone of this, or in the backdrop of this case is the fact that he was engaged in an affair with an adult film star. And we know Karen McDougal, the former Playboy playmate, is also another individual that he also had an affair with. So I think there is a very wide berth for the prosecution to already begin to attack the credibility of the defense just around that issue. And also we heard from the defense, which I thought was very interesting, when they said that Donald Trump is someone who was a very frugal businessman who did a lot of penny pinching. And why would he spend $130,000 to Stormy Daniels for a job that only paid $420,000? Again, an argument by the defense which goes counter to what we have known about Donald Trump and his reputation for decades now.
Okay, and Eric, we're looking at live footage of Donald Trump speaking right now. He's standing outside of court. So in addition to what you were just saying, we've also heard from the ex-National Enquirer publisher, this morning along those lines. What sort of evidence is going to be presented to the jury? Like, is there anything to indicate that the prosecution is in possession of a smoking gun, so to speak?
Well, we only heard from David Pecker. David Pecker is the former CEO of the National Enquirer, and they ended the session today because one of the alternates had a dental appointment. So he was only on the stand for about 30, maybe 35 minutes. And what we saw was basically just the beginning of an introduction of this witness to the jury, explaining who he was, what his role was at the National Enquirer, and also beginning to make the argument or establish a relationship between David Pecker and Donald Trump. And I'll just say very quickly, when they adjourned, now we know these two men who have had a relationship for more than 30 years now, they don't even speak anymore. And when David Pecker got off the witness stand and exited, he actually leaned over and spoke to the defense table.
Okay. CTV News political analyst Eric Ham. Thanks, Eric.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, today's Earth Day. Coming up, we're going to hear from one expert on the impact that climate change is having on modern sports. And this being Earth Day, it's a perfect time to stop and reflect on how climate change impacts all aspects of our everyday lives. Madeline Orr is an assistant professor of sport ecology at the University of Toronto, and she's been studying climate change and the impact on sports and joins us live right now via FaceTime. So, Madeline, let's talk about this climate change and sports. Put this together for us.
So climate change is impacting just about everything about how we play sports these days. If you think about the winter we just had, not a lot of skatable days. The rinks only opened into December. It used to be November back in our parents' generation, and now it's later. And then when you think about skiing, lots of resorts struggling to get enough water to make snow and having the temperatures to preserve that. And in the summer, we're looking at heat, real extreme heat conditions impacting players, impacting the health of everybody on the field and on the sidelines. And air pollution is creeping into the picture here in Toronto as well. Last year we had, you'll remember, pretty gruesome looking skies, and that impacts breathability, it impacts visibility, and that's going to have increasingly, it's going to take its toll on our summer sports programming.
Okay, so speaking of summer and sports, let's talk about the impact. What is your message to players, to coaches, and to parents of those young athletes?
Yeah, the message is that there are a lot of different worst case scenarios, and that includes heat stroke, heat death, asthma attacks that can land an athlete in the hospital. The challenge then becomes avoiding all of those things. The good news is it's 100% 100% avoidable if we have policies in place to respond when it happens. And that means, adding in heat breaks, adding in water breaks, making sure there's shade or misting fans nearby in the case of heat. And in the case of air pollution, we need policies that are going to stop play when the pollution gets so high that it's not breathable.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. Draw for us the correlation between air pollution and, these outdoor sports.
Yeah, so a lot of folks make the assumption that if you're outside and you're playing a sport and you're physically active, that you're going to be okay because you're so fit. The reality is, if you're outside breathing bad air on a day that has high pollution numbers, what's happening is you're going to bypass your nose, you're going to breathe through your mouth, and that means there's no filtration system preventing that pollutant from getting straight into your lungs and into your bloodstream. So an athlete is not only going to take in more direct pollution, but more volume of air as well. If you think about going for a run, you're huffing and puffing, you're taking in more volumes. Those pollutants reach the bloodstream faster with athletes, and that means an athlete is going to be more at risk than the sitting on the sideline.
And what about those who want to take part in some more low impact exercise outside, like walking, for instance? Are they at just as much risk?
No, so it does depend on how hard you're working out. If you're able to have your breathing through your nose, walking is probably okay for most folks. Again, it depends on your exercise level and your fitness level. But generally, I would say avoid strenuous exercise in outdoor conditions in poor air quality.
And Madeline, as we wrap up, what are your final words, your final thoughts on this Earth Day?
I would just say let's have conversations about it. We don't have to wait for Earth Day to have this conversation. If it's hot outside, talk to your coach, ask what the plan is. If you're a parent, find out what your club or your school's plans are for these kinds of conditions, because ultimately it's all about safety first.
Okay, safety first. Madeline Orr, Assistant Professor of Sport Ecology at the University of Toronto. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And thank you for watching CP24 Live at noon.